Hello everyone and welcome to the second game of the match, Magnus Carlsen versus Alireza Firouzja. Now Magnus has the white pieces and he will try to retaliate against Alireza, who won a brilliant game in their first clash. Let's dive straight into it, and we do have some insight as to why Magnus was smiling the entire game, as he did continue smiling the entire second game. They said that he was at the beach with the other chess players and that they were sort of playing chess. Now they were probably also maybe having some fun. Maybe there was dancing. Maybe they had a few drinks. Who knows what happened at that beach? But I'm sure it was a very well spent day. So let's dive straight into it. Magnus has the white pieces and he opens with c4. So when you want to strike back, you go for the English. Knight to f6, we have knight to f3, and now pawn to e6. The Agincourt defense is on the board. Knight to c3 and d5 by Alireza. C captures, e captures, and now pawn to d4. So transposing into the exchange variation of the Queen's Gambit decline, nothing new here. c6 and now bishop g5 being the most popular. Magnus chooses queen to c2 instead. We have g6 by Alireza. Now comes bishop to g5 and now bishop to e7, abandoning the plan of bishop to g7, e3 by Magnus, and the bishop to f5. So nicely developing, gaining a tempo on the queen here, but Magnus only now develops the bishop, so he didn't have to waste any tempi. Bishop captures, queen captures, and now knight b to d7. So nicely developing pieces, and Magnus says you are not castling kingside this game, but Alireza says I most certainly am. He chases away the bishop, bishop back to f4, and now knight to f8, remaneuvering the knight over to e6 to further harass Carlsen's bishop. And now there is a game where pawn to h3 was played, but here Magnus chooses pawn to h4, and it is now as of move 13 that we have a completely new game. So how do you continue playing this? You do not want to see h5 on the board, so Alireza plays h5 himself, and now knight to g5. Now this is a very nasty looking knight, and maybe you even want to get rid of it, but if you get rid of it, bishop captures, then you can even play h captures on g5, and this really puts the question, what is black to do? You're definitely not castling kingside, and with the light square bishop controlling this diagonal, you are not castling queenside. So instead, Alireza prepares the castle. He plays queen to d7. We have pawn to f3, now chasing away the knight, and now knight to h6. And here, Alireza does go for the bold queenside castle, but only after a few moves. First, Magnus castles queenside. Now we have f6, chasing away the knight, knight to h3, and now knight to f7, remaneuvering the knight over to d6, and Magnus strikes in the center with e4. And now it's a question, what do you do here? You could go for something like knight to d8 with the idea of bringing the knight over to e6 to attack the bishop, and if white captures, you can always recapture. You do have control over the d5 square, but Alireza played the d captures on e4. Magnus played queen captures on e4, and now Alireza does castle queenside, and this is very, very dangerous play with the with Carlsen's dark square bishop controlling this diagonal. There's a problem in the position, so feel free to unleash your inner Morphe while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on deciding to open up the position. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is pawn to d5. So congratulations if you spotted this. Now, the point is, when deciding on a move like this, imagine, okay, look at those squares. Imagine this knight on a7. That's a beautiful, beautiful checkmate. So how can we make this happen? Well, we play d5. Now, if c captures, then at some point we might gain control over this b5 square, and that's exactly what happened. You do not want to open up the position. For example, if c captures on d5, knight captures on d5, this is just terrible. I mean, terrible, terrible. King is coming to b1, rook to c1 check, and there is really no good square for this king. So instead, after d5, Alireza decided to keep the position closed, pawn to c5, but now Magnus wins the b5 square, and he starts with queen to c4. Now knight to b5 is coming, so bishop to d6, putting pressure on the bishop here, and now comes not knight to b5, f5, but knight to e4, now attacking the bishop twice and also putting pressure on this c5 pawn. So here we have king to b8. Alireza doesn't like the idea of bishop captures, knight captures, and now how do you continue playing this? Again, the c5 pawn is hanging. There's no good way of defending it. If you play b6, then just knight to e6 and you can resign. There's no playing this position. It's absolutely disgusting. So after knight to e4, Alireza played king to b8, and now Magnus goes for rook h to e1. You could also go for the clean capture with knight captures on f6, but maybe it's a bit too dangerous as this is a rapid game. You do win some material. Knight captures on f6. Queen to f5 now attacks the knight. You can trade bishops here, captures, or even rook captures and go back with the knight. Knight to e4 chases away the rook, but now the rook can come to b6, and it could get a little bit dangerous. White is still winning here, but Magnus decides to go the other way around. He brings the last inactive piece into the game, the rook on h1. He plays rook h to e1. Bishop captures on f4, knight captures, and now comes knight to e5. Knight to d6 might be a little bit more precise, but who's to say? This is rapid chess. Alireza is very low on time. He plays knight to e5, and now as the queen is attacked, queen to c3. So knight captures is still happening, so how can Alireza stop this? Again, there is no good way. If you play b6 to stop this, then again, knight captures on f6 just completely shatters Alireza's position. The knight here is attacked, and you don't have time to react to this as your queen is also hanging, so you just lose all the material. So after queen c3, we have queen to f5 now, guarding the f6 pawn, but now pawn to g3. Defending the knight on f4, we have b6 as this was still hanging. Alireza has to decide whether to give up the c5 pawn or the f6 pawn. He decides to keep his king safe, but now Magnus just plays knight captures on f6. We have knight f to d7, offering a trade of knights, and now Magnus happily trades knight captures, rook to e7, rook h to e8. Alireza also gets his rook into the game, and now rook d to e1, threatening rook captures on e8. So here Alireza trades, captures. Magnus having some 6.5 minutes on the clock. Alireza has maybe 35 seconds, maybe 40 seconds, and now we have knight to f6, trying to get the knight into the game, but Magnus just goes for the very clean queen to e5 check. He no longer needs to attack. He was only using the attack to obtain a winning advantage. Now the position is objectively winning, and he just goes for the endgame. He's up a pawn, his position is more active, and Alireza does trade queens, but after Magnus recaptures, it was also in this position on move 33 that Alireza Firouzja resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. It seems like, yes, you are only down one pawn. Maybe you can play this. The problem is, after king to c7, let's say you try something, you want to activate your king, this is your last active move that you will make in this game. Magnus just needs to play something like king here, bring the king deeper into the position, and then just start capturing, like a knight captures here or something, because you can't really do anything with black. We're going to play king to d2 now. How do you continue playing this? You can't go in front of the rook, because if you go in front of the rook, then we are just going to play rook e6 check and pick up the knight. So that's impossible. You can't try to get across, as then the rook no longer attacks the pawn, so it's just a free pawn on g6. So there's no way to play this. If you try knight e7, attack the rook, we're just going to play rook to e6, and now if knight to f8, trying to say, okay, maybe I can do some damage here, you're just going to play rook to f6. And again, there's still no way to get across. You're going to play king e3, king here, defend the pawn, capture here. The entire king side falls, and then you just push the pawns to victory. So this is a very, very elementary to both of them. Of course, Alireza knows this, and I imagine he was very much disgusted with his position, so he immediately resigned after rook captures on e5. So yeah, brilliant stuff by Magnus. He bounces back right into the match after losing that weird game against Alireza in the previous game, and also for some reason he was again smiling and laughing for the entire game. If any of you have any insight as to why this is so, do share in the comments, so we might all increase our vast knowledge. So yeah, once again, hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Michael Sakiaris, Hehla.com, Standish Company LLC, Attila Kaza, and Brian Enriquez for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the FTX Crypto Cup until it finishes. Thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.